Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I would like to welcome you to the Sunday Book Review. The Sunday Book Review is the series where I discuss books which impact the compliance practitioner, the legal professional, and the business professional. I hope you will enjoy this episode. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. In this episode of the Sunday Book Review, we look at serial killers and those who chase, arrest, and profile them. We begin with In Cold Blood. I'm not quite sure how to describe this book, but on November 15, 1959, in the small town of Holcomb, Kansas, 4 members of the Clutter family were savagely murdered by blasts from shotguns held a few inches from their face. There was no motive and no clues. Truman Capote, in one of the first books on the new journalism, reconstructs the murder and investigation, which led to the capture, trial, and execution of the killers. He generated both suspense and astonishing empathy. Cold Blood is a work that transcends the moment, yielding some poignant insights into the nature of American violence. Next up, Helter, Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi and Kurt Gentry. So the story of one of the most notorious killers in America, Charles Manson, and the Manson murders. The cult of Charles Manson went on a murderous spree in 1969, killing 5 people, including a pregnant Sharon Tate and 4 of her friends at their mansion. And then a couple of nights later, the LaBiancas were also murdered. This book tells the story of the sordid tale of Manson, the cult he created, the farm, how he thought the Beatles were calling to him in Helter, Skelter, hence the name of the book, the trial, all the evidence, and, of course, the convictions. This series of murders captivated America in the late 60s and was a seminal point in mass murders and serial killers. It's a chilling book. I read it as a teenager, and I know you will find the same. Next, we have 2 books about people who chase and capture serial killers. The first is Whoever Fights Monsters by Robert Ressler and Tom Shachtman. The author of this book played a major part in the FBI's development of a psychological profile for serial killers. He even invented the term serial killer. While Thomas Harris made Ressler's work famous in fiction, Ressler did it for real. His work at the Behavioral Science Unit led him to meet some of the most notorious criminals of the 20th century: Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, John Wayne Gacy, and more. In this book, Ressler describes the process of catching these men. This is a just gut-wrenching book to read. You can almost feel your skin creep as you read some of the interviews that Ressler had to do. And our final book is Behold the Monster, Confronting America's Most Prolific Serial Killer by Jillian Lauren. She had little idea what she unleashed when she started writing to prolific killer Samuel Little. All she knew, her research was going to lead somewhere. In this book, she delivers a harrowing report of her relationship with this psychopath, and it takes a deep dive into his mind. I'd like to tell you about the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network. It's 2 Gurus Talk Compliance, where, with my friend and colleague Christy Grant Hart, we take a look at some of the top compliance commentary around. It's a long-form, up to 1-hour podcast, but if you're interested in compliance, if you're interested in Christy Grant Hart and myself talking about compliance, this would be a great podcast for you to check in on. It premiered on March 10th on the Compliance Podcast Network. I know you'll enjoy this latest offering. Additionally, we have Data-Driven Compliance, which is a podcast where I look at the use of data in compliance programs. This is perhaps the most cutting-edge podcast I have going right now. And if you're interested in how data can be used, how to structure a data analytics program, what tools are available out there for you, and how compliance practitioners are using data, this is certainly the podcast for you. So check out Data-Driven Compliance, all on the Compliance Podcast Network. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.